All right, we are back with the GSMC Wrestling Laureate Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Eric Rodriguez, here every Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 11 p.m. Eastern Time, here to talk about everything in the world of professional wrestling. Just going to give a shout out of, a couple of chats we got here. And I got actually a couple of them hit right during the break. So first I got a chat from my man, Anthony Mazzano. If you haven't watched the show yet, I don't want to spoil it for you for Monday Night Raw and the results. Love that. Thank you so much, my man. But if it's something really juicy that we can dive into, that'd be pretty kind of cool as well. But like I said, I have not checked a single shred of social media, no TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook about, because I'll definitely love to be surprised 1,010%. I got a chat from my man, Little Fettuccine68. What's up, my boy? It's been a while since you've been here. It's time for a new leader of the Judgment Day. Okay. Is it time for? Yes, I do agree. Finn Balor, I believe, kind of should start his own singles career. After you saw Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley left, I was like, you know what? I kind of don't want anything a part of this, Judgment Day anymore. But then again, after 6 months of their existence, I did kind of condemn them. I thought a great addition to the Judgment Day would possibly be Bronson Reed to kind of be that new muscle that Finn Balor needed, or Finn Balor absolutely just, cleaning house, knocking out Carlito, JD McDonough, and just kind of starting his own thing would be pretty badass. Got a chat from Anthony Mazzano again. That does not shock me, man. Vince McMahon would intimidate writers because at the end of his run with WWE, he had a tendency to rip up scripts before pay-per-views and the weekly shows. And that's true. And that's actually something I was going to mention, during my segment as well, that it got so bad to the point where Vince McMahon literally was such an egomaniac, was such a man who never really cared about anybody else's plans, who would basically hire a bunch of yes man writers. Like, you know what I mean? Every single time you have to write a word or a sentence or maybe even a letter. They'd be like, it had to be approved by Vince McMahon. And it made for bad wrestling. There was obviously a couple of instances, which I'm going to get into right now, where it possibly could have, where it was decent, not the best, but it's actually much more that WWE needed. Outside of creative writing individuals, it was actually reported on social media and a lot of the wrestling media news outlets that Triple H is actually looking for, new, fresh writers. Like, I mean, new. I mean, like he, definitely was like, you know what, we need to bring new eyes, new heads, new ideas, and stuff like that. So, it doesn't really surprise me. It was his way or the highway. Little Fettuccine right here. Should Damage Control add a male member to the group? I think that'd be pretty cool. I feel ultimately that I feel like this new day and age of professional wrestling, they've been flirting with the fact that they might add intergender tag team championships. Of course, obviously, with the promotion of Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley as the Terror Twins, going across the brand to kind of defend. That would be interesting. That would be pretty. And I would honestly love to find out, or if you have a couple of suggestions of tag team, or someone who would tag team with Io Sky and Kairi Sane. Right off the bat, keeping that Japanese style, New Japan Professional Wrestling / Stardom kind of style would be kind of cool to see Shinsuke Nakamura, but he's already booked right now. I doubt he would come back. I got a chat from my man Daniel Mikhail. Thank God Samantha Irving is gone. She was so overrated. I ultimately, I thought she was great. I did think she was, I do think she's great. She's a Monday Night Raw announcer, and she got famous off of the way she interacted with the fans, the way she was able to kind of hold herself up during, her in-ring presentation, during the way she kind of announced people. As soon as Ricochet left, she was basically, kind of dropped by WWE. They didn't mention her after that. Possibly she could, overrated. I think she's talented. We were talking about it earlier in the segment beforehand that perhaps that she can wind up on the NFL as a sideline reporter. My man Anthony Mazzano, shout out to that amazing idea. I feel like that would be 1,010% great for her to do that. Then we have my man, Little Fettuccine. Is Tiffany cashing in on Crown Jewel? I feel like at this point she has to. She has to. My overall storyline is at the end of the match. You see Nia Jax. Maybe maybe some way somehow she loses. Liv Morgan wins the WWE Crown Jewel Women's Champion or whatever they like to call it. And then, Raquel Rodriguez comes out, beats her down. You have all of the Judgment Day on Nia Jax, and she's left beaten, battered inside the ring. And Tiffany Stratton's going to cash on Nia Jax. Just, a lot of foreshadowing details and clues that you see on WWE SmackDown. I feel like that'd be pretty badass. So one War Games match this year, right? I don't know if there should be a women's War Games match. I would absolutely love to see a women's War Games match. That'd be badass. You have Team Rhea Ripley going up against Team Liv Morgan. That would be so cool. Oh my God. And with the new innovative matches that the women in WWE has kind of been, facing, you see dumpster matches, now you see steel cage and stuff like that, ladder matches, the women's Money in the Bank match as well. Sometimes you could hit a couple of violent spots there. So oh my God, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. When is The Rock coming back? The Netflix premiere? That could be possible. I feel like, yes, that could be possible, but ultimately, I know that I read in a report that WWE is making this Netflix premiere into like its own kind of like this PLE. You have John Cena coming back. What if he goes face to face with The Rock? I ultimately think the Bloodline Civil War or the Bloodline drama will wind up on Netflix, as opposed to the USA Network. The USA Network, by all means, I respect and I love the USA Network. But right now on Monday Night Raw, you don't really have that top guy. You had Gunther recently winning the WWE World Heavyweight Championship about 2 or 3 months ago. Before then, it was Damian Priest. They took a chance on Sami Zayn. So I feel like right now, like the kind of let's experiment on some of these young superstars. I feel like it kind of belongs to the USA Network, which makes me think that that's where SmackDown will go. That makes me think that that's the reason why you saw Michael Cole and Corey Graves go to SmackDown as well. Well, Corey Graves stayed, but you saw Michael Cole come because you have to have, I feel like WWE is planning for SmackDown to kind of be that B show, especially with a 10-year billion-dollar deal with Netflix. You kind of owe it to Netflix to kind of have all the hot superstars, all the craziness happen, because they're out there, trying to, put WWE on the map. Who is she cashing in on? I think Nia Jax, 1,010%. The Bloodline War Games match should be enough for Survivor Series. Give it like an hour. I believe it will last an hour. It's going, I feel like we're going to have like 3 or 4 matches. I hope it's not like 3 or 4 because, I'm a huge fan of old school pay-per-views. Obviously, I was brought up during the Attitude Era where you would see on Unforgiven, Judgment Day, Backlash, No Way Out. You'd have like 8 or 9 matches with all the titles being defended. Obviously, that's not the new WWE. Triple H, Paul Levesque, basically his philosophy in WWE is quality over quantity, as opposed to AEW's Tony Khan, who has 4 matches during the pre-show, which is cool. It all depends what kind of a wrestling fan you are. You know what I mean? Sometimes people complain that AEW has a long pre-show. In that case, it burns the fans out, But if you have a hot main event like what you saw with Bryan Danielson going up against Jon Moxley at AEW's Wrestle Dream, I feel like ultimately it was it's a good decision. It's a good decision. If you can back it up with the main event, it's a good decision. All right, so Vince McMahon intimidated WWE writers. Not too shocked to hear this news. In an article by the Rolling Stones, they spoke to 6 former WWE creative writers, saying that Vince McMahon was in the writers' room, backstage, back in the conference rooms and stuff like that during the production meetings, and he ruled by fear and intimidation, ruling with an iron fist. Writers described McMahon's creative room as a hostile environment in 2016 to 2022. Five of the writers actually wanted to stay anonymous during everything because of fear of retribution from WWE, their former colleagues, and rabid wrestling fans. The verbal abuse actually was very common during the in the writers' room. But not only in the writers' room, actually, but throughout the corporate headquarters inside WWE, writers were subjected to racist, xenophobic, and also offensive storylines. with talents like, for example, like Muhammad Hassan, R-Truth, Titus O'Neil, and Mark Henry. Former WWE employee Brittany Abrams was fired after objecting and actually trying to stick up for herself during racist acts of, of racism during, in the writers' room or during, WWE headquarters, allegedly. Obviously got to say, allegedly. Former writers also expressed doubt that, the company's culture would ever actually change, even after Triple H Paul Levesque took over new leadership of the chief content officer. Of course, after Vince McMahon resigned as CEO and executive chairman of TKO Holdings in January 2024, after a lawsuit filed by Janelle Grant in June of 2022 during a hush money scandal. Stephanie McMahon and Paul Levesque took over alongside with WWE President Nick Khan, trying to trying to make some WWE different. You know what I mean? Trying to have something different. Obviously, Vince McMahon has still kind of, once when Triple H Paul Levesque took over, when Vince was quote unquote retired back in 2022, rumors of Vince McMahon still calling the shots behind the scene. It was possible. It was possible. And and thinking about some of the storylines you kind of saw back then, I remember kind of joking along. My wife's a WWE fan as well. We would watch pay-per-views and Monday Night Raw and SmackDown, where some things would happen, or promo would happen, or a match outcome would happen, and you'd be right off the bat, you'd be like, man, that was Vince. That was Vince. Oh, that was Triple H. That was Vince. Oh, that kind of thing. That sounds like, that kind of seems like something Vince McMahon would do. Just the fact that you can kind of tell the discrepancy between the two, meant that WWE should have let Vince McMahon in the dirt a long time ago in terms of, creative abilities and stuff like that. So in a recent interview with Kevin Nash, obviously very close with Triple H Paul Levesque, with his co-host Sean Oliver on their Click This podcast, believes that Triple H Paul Levesque would followed his wife Stephanie McMahon out of the door of WWE. When you saw Stephanie McMahon left, basically she was like, you know what, I'm done. I can't deal with this anymore. Much like you kind of see Shane McMahon not really digging his nose in the WWE, basically with all the Vince McMahon scandals and stuff like that. But Paul Levesque was ready to leave, and Vince McMahon was ready to kind of assume charge of WWE. And it's been documented. It's been reported that Vince McMahon, if this would have never happened, with this whole Janelle Grant case, that he would have never left WWE. He never wanted to leave WWE. He wanted to stay with WWE till probably the day he died. So I guess, with this, filing and this new, with this new creative direction that Triple H Paul Levesque kind of has of WWE, I don't want to be a jerk and be like, maybe it was like a blessing in disguise that this happened. Obviously, you don't want to be insensitive to like any of the family members of the McMahon family. But I don't know. It just seems like this new take that professional wrestling had. Vince McMahon back in the day, a lot of bad stuff. A lot of bad stuff. I don't know if any of you guys watched that Netflix documentary. A lot of bad stuff. Also, he was the main reason why WWE, why professional wrestling turned out to be so mainstream. So at the same time, like, you hate him for being the man he was. But I would say probably in the beginning of his career. But at the same time, at the beginning of his career, he did some messed up too. I don't know. It's kind of like kind of like grabbing a double-edged sword. Like, whatever side you grab is, it's gonna cut you. It's gonna make you bleed. It's gonna hurt. So it's kind of crazy. Kevin Nash also said in the backstage of the WWE environment. And he said it's night and day different. It's night and day different. So obviously those reports of Triple H, Paul Levesque not really changing the environment of racism, xenophobic slurs, offensive language in corporate headquarters. I ultimately feel like it, that I feel like it's wrong. Like, don't necessarily, backstage morale. WWE superstars were interviewed. Also, WWE, personnel was interviewed and talked to as well, saying that this is just a different environment. Just absolutely, you see Triple H, Paul Levesque actually just like, cleaning house, being like, look, this is how we're going to handle things. We don't really want things to kind of be lingering over, any negative publicity. We want all the employees here to kind of feel like they serve a purpose, that they're appreciated, but most importantly, just to feel comfortable to come to work. I know a lot of you people could actually, relate to this. You have a 9 to 5 job or just any job, You want to go and not have to deal with bull spit. Like, you know what I mean? You don't want to deal with like, that one employee who just absolutely like bags on you all the time, or just seems like he's a womanizer. He's too aggressive toward the men. Maybe has a little man complex. Maybe perhaps he, maybe like some people actually they deserve to kind of get their ass kicked when they're younger to kind of shape them up. Maybe some person never got that beating. Like I'm just kidding. But overall, like I know it's just not really a comfortable situation. And according to Kevin Nash, he says WWE is night and day different, and I kind of believe that. You see better bookings right now with the right superstars getting their pushes, like for example, like Cody Rhodes, Rhea Ripley as well. You have a lot of young talent, a lot of people that you can cheer for. So definitely love that. I think it's I feel like WWE's headed toward the right direction. Obviously, it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of scandals, a lot of BS that Vince McMahon kind of left lingering over his shadow. That I feel like Paul Levesque actually kind of has to clean up his father-in-law's mess. But with Vince McMahon in charge, it was bad. Like during 2016, 2022, it was very, very bad. Think about the Rusev storyline. With I feel bad for Rusev, man. I feel like Vince McMahon kind of had the hots for Lana, or allegedly, so he would like just put her in these kind of sexual demeaning roles where she would make out with Bobby Lashley, Dolph Ziggler, and it was bad. Obviously, it did detrimental effects to their marriage. They recently got divorced. But then again, like who could basically live with like watching your wife make out with one of your colleagues on on live TV, at your work, you know what I mean? Like it's not easy, and it plays a factor. And I'm not saying that's the reason why they broke up, but it definitely would serve a lot of hostility toward them, because you can never really look at your significant other the same. Obviously, there are actors out there in Hollywood that like you can see somebody like I don't know, but a lot of people are different. A lot of people are different. Also, the Jason Jordan Kurt Angle segment where his illegitimate son was Jason Jordan. Obviously, it was it was reported by not WWE, by anonymous reports that the reason why this storyline went through was literally a prank from Vince McMahon on Kurt Angle, based on his dating history with dating African American women. Where he was like, you know what, we're gonna have Jason Jordan come in. He's gonna be your illegitimate son. Ha 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 ha. So fuck. Like, I mean, I did a segment where I felt like Kurt Angle was punished by WWE. He was punished by Vince McMahon, and this thing kind of happening right now. Just shows that I was exactly right. And not much of a surprise based on basically on who Vince McMahon, or who Mr. McMahon was, and that's kind of heartbreaking, kind of crazy. And then you also had that Roman Reigns push where he was being forced down the throats of WWE fans. No one wanted to see Roman Reigns win. He peaked too early, and it wasn't Roman's fault. It wasn't Roman's fault. And Roman Reigns turned it into a heel, obviously in the beginning of like 2000 and the 2020s was a good deal. I don't think that was Vince McMahon at all. I think that was more of a Triple H, Paul Levesque kind of thing. The only thing that kind of, shed light during this whole thing was when Kofi Mania was happening, which was amazing, which was great. He got this push of a future superstar that it was Kofi Kingston, which of course we thought. Then on an episode of Friday Night SmackDown, he took on Brock Lesnar, where Brock Lesnar destroyed him, winning the WWE Championship in under 10 seconds. Once again, killing it. Not killing it in a good thing, but killing the momentum that you could possibly have to kind of redeem yourself as a WWE writer. It's kind of crazy. NXT was only the shining star. Obviously, that was Triple H's baby. Vince McMahon, quote unquote, didn't want to touch it. He didn't want to touch it. You saw NXT stars thrive in NXT, but of course, NXT was a developmental brand. So then you saw some of these superstars come to the main roster, SmackDown and Raw, only to walk into a buzzsaw the hands that was Vincent Kennedy McMahon, who was in charge now of their creative storylines, which was awful. Probably the worst decision anybody could make to kind of put these young superstars who were getting so much positive information in terms of their career as wrestlers. Having Vince McMahon he didn't know what to do with him. And, you see a lot of like Malachi Black, EC3, you saw, Keith Lee, you saw Indy Hartwell come up. You also saw Ember Moon, and it just, the only person that kind of shined was Baron Corbin. But Baron Corbin pissed off WWE creative Vince McMahon, and and then he was buried. He lost his Money in the Bank chances. Then he was put under like BS storylines like the Constable, Happy Corbin. It was just bad. It was very very bad. It was crazy. The reports that Vince McMahon actually never remembered the storylines that he thought of the week before. So he would book these superstars in matches that like every week, every other week. Some of the promos, it was exactly the same. I remember Triple H in the ring with Vince McMahon, and he was kind of crying. He was upset. I remember watching this on Monday Night Raw, and like he was basically saying, like, you're getting too old for this. It wasn't really put into perspective or put into words, but you can just kind of tell that Vince McMahon was actually sad. You can tell that he was literally losing his mind. He didn't know exactly how to handle WWE anymore. Like, you get old, and then that's not trying to crap on that or anything like that. Everybody gets old, but like he literally like lost his mind. He had no idea what he booked the week before. He was driving these WWE superstars insane, and he was kind of a jerk. Like I said, ruling with an iron fist, being intimidating, having people fear him, which in his mind was the right way to kind of go. If you're a manager, if you're a boss of any any kind of line of work, if it's fast food or if it's like a business or like a school, whatever. You never ever want to kind of have that hostile environment surrounding the situation at work. Nevertheless, kind of affecting the way we kind of go out there and we make money. Like what I mean. This is something that you have to do. So surviving life, you got to go out there, have a job, bam, make money, have a roof over your head, have food on the table for your kids or for yourself, whatever. You have car payments, you have rent, you have bills, water, trash, electricity. Like what I mean, it's all part of life. You got to go out there and make money. And if you're gonna make things into a hostile environment, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it 1,010%. So that's kind of something that Vince McMahon, no, he was ready to retire. He was ready to retire, obviously. But I don't know, it's kind of crazy to kind of dive into that. All right, guys, we took so long on that segment. I deeply apologize, but definitely love hearing a lot of what you guys have to say. Thank you so much for your participating in the chat. We're gonna get done with this for a fifth segment. We have Sting, the Icon, inks a new contract with AEW, so we're gonna talk about that when we return. So hey, do not go anywhere.